Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Chapter 5. Advice from a Caterpillar. The caterpillar and Alice looked at each other for some time, in silence. At last the caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and addressed her in a sleepy, languid voice. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. This was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied rather shyly, I hardly know, sir, just at this present. At least, I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have changed several times since then." "What do you mean by that?" said the caterpillar sternly. "Explain yourself." "I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir," said Alice, "because I'm not myself, you see." "I don't see," said the caterpillar. "I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly," Alice replied, rather politely. "For I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in one day is just very confusing." "It isn't," said the caterpillar. "Well, perhaps you haven't found it out yet," said Alice. "But when you turn into a chrysalis, you will, you know, one day, and after that into a butterfly, I think you'll feel a little bit queer, won't you?" "Not a bit," said the caterpillar. "Well, perhaps your feelings may be different," said Alice. "All I know is it would feel very queer to me." "You?" said the caterpillar contemptuously. "Who are you?" Which then brought them back around to the very beginning of the conversation. Alice felt a little irritated at the caterpillars making such very short remarks, and she drew herself up and said gravely, "I think you ought to tell me who you are first." "Why?" said the caterpillar. It was another puzzling question, and as Alice couldn't really think of any good answer, and as the caterpillar seemed to be very, very puzzled, an unpleasant state of mind, she turned away. "Come back!" the caterpillar called after her. "I have something very important to say." It sounded promising. Certainly Alice turned round and came back again. "Keep your temper," said the caterpillar. "Is that all?" said Alice, swallowing down his anger as well as she could. "No," said the caterpillar. He really doesn't say much. Alice thought she might as well wait, as she had nothing else to do, and perhaps after all it might tell her something worth hearing. For some minutes it puffed away without speaking, its back on the hookah, but at last it unfolded its arms, took the hookah out of its mouth again, and said, "So you think you've changed, do you?" "I'm afraid I have, sir," said Alice. "I can't remember things as I used, and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes altogether." "Can't remember what things?" said the caterpillar. "Well, if I tried to say, 'How doth the little busy bee?' but it all came out differently," Alice replied in a rather melancholy voice. "Repeat, 'You are old, Father William,'" said the caterpillar. Alice folded her arms and began. "You are old, Father William," the young man said. "Your hair has grown very white, and yet you are insistently standing on your head. Do you think at your age is right?" "In my youth," Father William replied to his son, "I feared it might have injured the brain, but now that I am perfectly sure that I have none, why, I do it again and again." "You are very old," said the youth, "as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat, and yet you turned back somersault at the door. Pray, what was the reason of that?" "In my youth," said the sage, as he shook his grey locks, "I kept all my limbs very supple. By use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box. Allow me to sell you a couple." "You are old," said the youth, "and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than sweet. Yet you finished the goose with the bones in the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?" "In my youth," said his father, "I took to the law and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life." "You are old," said the youth. "One would hardly suppose that an eye was as steady as ever, and yet you balance an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?" I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough, said the father. Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to this stuff? Be off, I'll kick you off the stairs. That is not said right, said the caterpillar. Not quite right, I'm afraid, said Alice timidly. Some of the words have got altered. It is wrong from beginning to end, said the caterpillar decidedly, and there was silence for some minutes. The caterpillar was the first to speak. What size do you want to be? It said. Oh, I'm not particular as to size, Alice hastily replied. One doesn't like changing so often, you know. I don't know, said the caterpillar. Alice said nothing. She had never been so contradicted in her life before, and she felt she was losing her temper. Are you content now? Said the caterpillar. Well, I suppose be a little larger, sir, if you don't put it to mind, said Alice. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be. It is a very good height indeed, said the caterpillar, angrily, rearing herself up as she spoke. It was exactly 3 inches. Hey, yeah, I'll stop there. But I'm not used to it, pleaded poor Alice in a piteous tone. And he thought to himself, I wish the creatures wouldn't be so easily offended. You'll get used to it in time, said the caterpillar, and he put the hook in his mouth and began smoking again. This time Alice waited patiently until it should speak again. In a minute or two the caterpillar took the hook out of his mouth and yawned once or twice and shook itself. Then it got down off the mushroom and crawled away in the grass, merely remarking as it went, one side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow shorter. One side of what? The other side of what? Alice thought to herself. Of the mushroom, said the caterpillar, just as she asked it aloud, and in another moment it was out of sight. Alice remained looking thoughtfully at the mushroom for a minute, trying to make out which were the 2 sides were. As it was perfectly round, she found this a very difficult question. However, at last, she stretched out her arms as far as they would go and broke off a bit of the edge with each hand. Now, which is which? She said to herself, and nibbled a little of the right hand bit to try the effect. The next moment she felt a violent blow in the chin. It struck her foot. She was a good deal frightened by the sudden change, but she felt that there was no time to be lost. She was sinking rapidly, so she set to work to eat at once, eat some of the other side of the bit. Her chin was so proudly pressed so close against her foot, it was hungry to open her mouth, but she did at last, and managed to swallow a morsel of the hand bit. Come, my head's free at last, said Alice, in a tone of delight, which changed into alarm in another moment, when she found her own shoulders were nowhere to be found. All she could see, when she looked down, was the immense length of her neck, which seemed to rise like a stalk out of a sea of green leaves that lay far below her. What can all this green stuff be? Said Alice. And where do my shoulders go to? Oh, my poor hands. Is that how is it I can't see you? She was moving them about as she spoke, but no result seemed to follow, except a little shaking among the distant green leaves, as there seemed to be no chance of getting her hands up to her head. She tried to get her head down to them, and was delighted to find that her neck would bend about rather easily in any direction, like a serpent. She had just succeeded in curving it down into a graceful zigzagging, and was going to dive in among the leaves when she found to be nothing, but the tops of the trees under which she had been wandering, when a sharp hiss drew her back in a hurry. A large pigeon had flown into her face and was beating her violently with its wings. Serpent! Screamed the pigeon. I'm not a serpent, said Alice indignantly. Let me alone. Serpent, I say again, repeated the pigeon, but in a more subdued tone, now with a kind of sob. I've tried every other way, and nothing seems to suit them. I haven't the least idea what you're talking about, said Alice. I've tried the roots of the trees, and I've tried the banks, and I've tried the hedges, the pigeon went on, without attending to her, but those serpents, there's no pleasing them. Alice was more and more puzzled. She thought there was no use in saying anything more until the pigeon had finished. "As if it wasn't trouble enough hatching the eggs," said the pigeon, "but I must be on the lookout for serpents day and night. Why, I haven't had a wink of sleep for 3 weeks. And just as I've taken to the highest..." Sorry. "I'm very sorry you've been annoyed," said Alice, who was beginning to see his meaning. "And now just I've taken to the highest tree in the wood," continued the pigeon, raising his voice to a shriek, "and I was thinking, but you're free of them at last. Then those needs come wriggling down from the sky. Serpent!" "But I'm not a serpent, I tell you," said Alice. Well, what are you?" said the pigeon. "I see you're trying to invent something." I'm a little girl," said Alice rather doubtfully, as she remembered the number of changes she had been through that day. "A likely story indeed," said the pigeon in a tone of deepest contempt. "I've seen a many good little girls in my time, but none with such a neck as that. No, you are a serpent, and there's no use denying it. I suppose you'll be trying to tell me in a minute that you've never tasted an egg." "I have tasted eggs, certainly," said Alice, who was a very truthful child. "But all the girls eat legs quite as much as serpents, don't you know?" "I don't believe it," said the pigeon. "But if they do, then why then they're some then they are some kind of serpent. That's all I can say." This was such a new idea to Alice that she was quite silent for a minute or two, which gave the pigeon the opportunity of adding, "You're looking for eggs. I know that very well enough. And then what does it matter to me whether you're a little girl or a serpent?" "Well, be off." Sorry. "It matters to me a great deal," said Alice hastily, "but I am not looking for eggs, as it happens, and if I was, I wouldn't be after yours. I don't like them raw." "Well, be off then," said the pigeon in a sulky tone, as it settled down again in its nest. Alice crouched down among the trees as well as she could, for her neck got entangled among the branches, and every now and again she had to stop and untwist it. After a while she remembered that she could still have the remaining pieces in her hands, and as she set to work very carefully, nibbling at first at one and then the other, sometimes growing shorter and sometimes growing shorter, until she had succeeded in bringing herself down to her usual height. It was so long that she'd been anything close to this size that it felt quite strange at first, but then she did get used to it in a few minutes, and began tilting herself as usual. "Come on, that's half my plan done. How puzzling all these changes are. I'm never quite sure what I'm going to be from one minute to another. However, I've got back to my right size, and the next thing is to get in my beautiful garden. How's that to be done, I wonder?" As she said this, she came upon an open place with a little house. It was about 4 feet high. "Whoever lives here," thought Alice, "it'll never do to be coming in this size. Why, I should frighten them out of their wits." She began nibbling at the right-hand bit again, which was the smaller one, and did not venture to go near the house until she had brought herself down to about 9 inches high. That's the end. Next chapter will be Pig and Pepper, and this was Full Toy.